What's going on, everybody? My name is Bear, and welcome back to another album review. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the 13th studio album by American rock band Sevendust, entitled Blood and Stone. Blood and Stone was actually written and recorded shortly after their All I See Is War tour back in 2019. The theme of the album is all about the endurance and the threshold of Sevendust, just kind of the ins and outs, the pros and cons that they've been going throughout the years as a band, even because these guys have been around for ever. I'm pretty sure it's been close to 25 years or somewhere around there. As many describe this album as brooding and dark with surging rhythm, slightly off-key melodies, and very strong drumming, but I wouldn't say that it's very slightly off-key. There's a lot of songs on here that the melody really coincides with Lejean Witherspoon's vocals, and it just works so well. But without further ado, let's just cut right into this. The first song on the album, Dying to Live, it includes a lot of sick guitar riffs from Clint Lowery, and it's also super catchy as well. And Lejean Witherspoon, he just has such a melodic hard rock voice, and he really knows how to sell a song well. And there's not really any kind of message I can pick up from his song, but after inciting the themes that were told from the album already, I can see what they're trying to do with this album. But the thing is about Sevendust is that they pretty much have a similar sound all throughout their albums, but it just seems as if throughout this album it just seems kind of throwbacks to their earlier work. And I don't mind people using their nostalgia for their music for newer albums. I don't think you should pretty much remake a song from your older albums, if that makes any sense. The second track of the album, Love, the whole band harmonized together really well on every single album, and they don't really disappoint here. And the song kind of asks, why do we love if we don't like the feeling? Kind of insinuating themes about broken relationships. And Sevendust actually have an argument between themselves in the band, as some of the backing vocalists, which even though I do listen to Sevendust and I am a fan of them, I can never pick out who is singing besides Lejean. But basically the backing vocals, they kind of play pros and cons to what Lejean mentions about love. And it's great to hear as well. I really like in the pre-chorus how the instrumentals just stop, and they pretty much coincide with the vocals, as the guitars really add this very soothing and signature Sevendust chord progression. It really is a great track. Then we move to the title track of the album, Blood from a Stone. I can't really pick out the meaning of this song as well. There's a lot of songs on here that just don't really give you any kind of explanation or any kind of explanation to what it's about. It feels like it's sort of a hopeful track, just trying to strive above adversity, just a very, stick to yourself type track. It reminded me a lot of old school Deftones from back in the day. The next track, Feel Like Going On, is about the negatives of social media, which I can pick up from the line, what's the next thing to follow, a ghost behind the keys. Very similar to the sound to the song of Thank You off of their 2015 album, Kill the Flaw. It's almost expecting change in the world from social media, but nonetheless, just kind of standing by idly and not really doing anything about it is kind of ironic considering how the song gives itself. It doesn't really give any kind of explanation to how we can fix it. It just kind of acknowledges that it exists, and it doesn't really give any kind of explanation to how we can fix it. Then we move to the next track, What You've Become. Very similar to the rhythm to Pantera's Walk in the verses. This is probably one of the most powerful vocals that Lejean really expresses on the album. The song kind of touches on the subject of toxicity in relationships, as the person in the song kind of just sees their partner become the shell and this demon that they've become, and how it is killing them on the inside. And I can't really say much about it, because a lot of the tracks on this album just really have the same kind of instrumental, and they don't really progress it in any way. They just kind of have the same type of formula. But I have to give them credit for the fact that they really know how to express their emotions through their music, and they know how to express what they're trying to get across. And I should also mention the very badass solo from Clint Lowery in this song as well. The next song, Kill Me, reminds me of a lot of their 2007 album, Alpha. It expresses they want to leave this relationship, but it would seem almost easier if she were just to kill him, because then he wouldn't have to feel the emotions of leaving her heartbroken. This is the most metal-based instrumental on the album. Sevendust was regarded as a nu metal band. They've kind of just moved to a hard rock type of thing. As their careers went by, they kind of just got rid of the nu metal shtick and then just kind of moved into just doing hard rock. And I also like the very unclean vocals on the bridge. I do really enjoy them. Sevendust actually has some pretty solid unclean vocals, but they don't really utilize them a lot nowadays, so when you hear them, it's actually really enjoyable. We then move to the most forlorn track on the album, Nothing Left to See Here Anymore. And by the first line, Slap My Face, once again, I can imply that this maybe be a sign of abuse in the song, kind of touching on that once again. The song seems to show how a person is stuck in an abusive relationship, but it seems as if they're almost stuck in it because they believe that they will change, but every time he tries to leave, it just turns back into nothing and it's rinse and repeat, almost like it's in a purgatory. Sevendust has already been, you know, touching on the subject throughout this album and in a lot of their previous projects as well. I would say that this is one of their better tracks on the album, but I'm not too much of a fan about the chorus, but Lejon's very powerful voice really drives the song all the way through. A lot of the songs on this album wouldn't be as good, in my opinion, if it wasn't for Lejon's vocals. Then we move to the next track, Desperation. This song kind of reminds me of their previous album, All I See Is War. Turtle, can you fuck off? This song kind of reminds me a lot of All I See Is War, which is their 2018 album, the previous one before this. I think that this song could possibly be about not being able to perform because of the current pandemic, and having a lot of anxiety about being isolated and not being able to have a normal life. It's not the best song on the album, but it's passable. And the instrumentation is also not very special. It's not bad and it's not terrible, it's alright. Kind of like that track that you just have in the background of when you're listening to something. Doesn't really have any kind of meaning to it, but it still sounds good regardless. The next track, Criminal, the instrumentation reminds me a lot of old school Aerosmith, which is a very weird comparison to say the Sevendust. This song is probably the weakest song in the album. I can't really draw any parallels. It just seems a little too generic, like a lot of the songs off of Blackout the Sun. The next track, Against the World. Against the World is kind of touching on a new relationship. It's like juxtaposing the ideas of the previous track, Nothing Left to See Here Anymore, as he found a new love and it's all sunshine and rainbows, as he wants to make sure he does not lose them, because if he did, it would basically be the death of him. So he really does not want to screw the relationship up for them, and it's them against the world, essentially. It reminds me a lot of Linkin Park's Crawling and instrumentation, but subject-wise it reminds me a lot of Sevendust Thank You once again. It seems like they've recycled a lot of the old ideas that they used to have in their music. They didn't really like add anything new to it, they just kind of were like, well, let's just see how this will go and maybe it'll work. We then move to Alone. I don't know, honestly. I can't really interpret this song either. It's like the meh song in the album. Nothing bad, but nothing noteworthy. Same with the next track, Wish You Well. I can't really say anything about that album, that track either. And then we close off the album with a cover song, The Day I Tried to Live. This is actually a cover song by the band Soundgarden. And if you do know, Sevendust were really close friends with lead singer Chris Cornell before he passed away in 2017. This song is more of a dedication to close out the album with. I would complain and say that it's kind of redundant, as it's pretty much the same instrumental. The sentiment behind the song really helps it through, especially with Lejon's vocals, and it delivers a very powerful send-off to close out the album with. In my opinion, I believe that this was not their best album, this was not their worst, and this was not their best album. The album just kind of suffered from a lot of what their previous albums had. Not a lot of change, and just relying on old ideas to make new music. It just seems like it's kind of irrelevant, and it doesn't really add anything to the music. It just uses the same type of concept and doesn't really progress itself in any way. I'm actually going to be giving this album a high 4 out of 10. I hope you guys enjoyed this album review. Also, I have a Spotify playlist where you can check out all the albums that I plan to review or will review in the future. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I will talk to you all later.